Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked on Wolves. Today on the show, I want to talk about the most important player for the Timberwolves here moving forward, especially with Anthony Edwards apparently sidelined a little bit longer. Who's the most important player for the Wolves? I'll just go ahead and say for the rest of March. I also want to look at overall since the first of the year, who has played the best, maybe relative to expectations for the Wolves. Then finally, we'll preview Wolves Thunder here today. Welcome in. You are Locked on Wolves.
You are Locked on Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked on Wolves podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked on Wolves. I'm also the editor of Dunking with Wolves, the Timberwolves site on the Fansided Network. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves are in OKC to take on the Thunder this evening. We'll get to that in a little bit, but before that, there's plenty more to talk about here today. First of all, though, a big thank you for making Locked on Wolves your first listen every single day. Locked on Wolves is, of course, free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, you name it. We're very likely on that platform. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked on T-Wolves and at Beecken, and that's with two B's, two E's, C-K-E-N. All right, so I mentioned Wolves Thunder. We'll get to that here in a little bit. I want to start with, Anthony Edwards has already been ruled out for Friday's game. So if you didn't see that, a note passed along by Timberwolves PR late on Thursday. Anthony Edwards on Friday night in Oklahoma City continue the knee tendonitis continues, obviously. And I want to talk a little bit around that. And then also that I think leads naturally into who needs to step up for the Wolves in his absence, because this is now a multi-game absence. And since the first year, who has stepped up? And is that potentially the same person that the Wolves are going to be counting on moving forward? And also part of why they're willing to allow Edwards to rest here for the foreseeable future. So, and of course, I guess I'm projecting out foreseeable future. Who knows? Maybe he plays on Saturday. But the fact that the Wolves are opting to let him rest another day, he did the walkthrough at practice on Thursday. He did the walkthrough at practice on Thursday, and the Wolves decided to sit him for Friday's game. The Wolves turn on to play back at home on Saturday against Portland. And so it's another back-to-back. There's always the possibility he'll only rest Friday. That gives him, he didn't play Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 days off. Maybe he does play Saturday at home against Portland. Not sure. But clearly the Wolves are looking at the schedule and saying, okay, OKC Friday, Portland Saturday, Portland again on Monday, and then OKC again next Wednesday. The next 4 games are against teams that, Portland still has a shot at the 10 seed, but they've lost 3 in a row. Excuse me, they've lost 3 in a row, and there's a real possibility that they just simply aren't a playoff team. And either way, it's a team the Wolves should beat with or without Anthony Edwards, regardless of whether or not they squeak into the 10 seed. But the Wolves are looking at the schedule saying these next 4 games, actually 5, because then the next game about a week from now, I think it is next Friday against the Orlando Magic. So the Wolves are going to be favored in 5 straight games with or without Anthony Edwards. Why not get him some extra rest right now? Maybe the Wolves just rest him all the way through to next Wednesday, or maybe it's through this entire stretch. But I'd be willing to bet that it at least partially hinges on how his replacements play. And the part of the reason the Wolves are so comfortable to do this, in addition to the schedule, is because of how well a couple of guys played the last time. Well, really, I guess it's the first of the year. But look at the game just on Tuesday that the Timberwolves won. Malik Beasley was phenomenal. Jordan McLaughlin continues to play extremely well. Both of them have very impressive net ratings since the start of the year. Jordan McLaughlin has had that crazy assist to turnover ratio over the past several weeks. He's been awesome defensively. The Wolves played him, it was like a quarter and a half straight during the game on Tuesday. Finch acknowledged after the game they couldn't take him off the floor because he was so good defensively. If McLaughlin and Beasley are the 2 players, obviously Jalen Noel getting into the rotation, when Edwards is healthy, Noel was out of the rotation. So Noel goes from out of the rotation to into it. But the 2 guys that are going to play more important minutes and see those minutes ramp up even more are Malik Beasley and Jordan McLaughlin. And if those guys play like they did on Tuesday in the win against Golden State, and really over the past few weeks in general, then the resting Edwards against the likes of Oklahoma City, Portland, and Orlando is not a big deal at all. And so no doubt the schedule, as well as the improved play and the impressive play of late from Beasley and McLaughlin, is why the Wolves are so comfortable giving Edwards some more time off, because obviously they're going to need Edwards. They need Edwards long term, right? There's no question about that. So this is actually a good pocket in the schedule, and an impressive run for Beasley, McLaughlin, and to a lesser extent Noel. Now getting back into the rotation, he played pretty well earlier this week when he played in place of Edwards. This is the timing could be about perfect for this. Since the start of the season, well, actually, I'll get to this next. I want to talk about what the Wolves have been doing really since the start of January, and the single player that I think needs to step up the most, and really he has since that point in time. But I want to talk about why it's so important here moving forward without Edwards, and then we'll get to Wolves Thunder and do a quick preview there as well. First of all, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. Football might be over for this season, but basketball is full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach might land, betonline.net is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. As long as you're making Locked On Wolves your first listen, first of all, thank you. For your next listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game and more, really, from around the sports world with analysis from all of our local experts for each team. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. It's definitely the best way to learn more about what happened in the league last night without having to sit and watch a highlight show or scroll through your social media channel of choice. Go check out Locked On Now. It's the best way to get all that information and all the key talking points, I guess, from what went on the night before. All right. So since January, January 2nd or January 3rd, when the Wolves got everybody back virtually from COVID, Karl-Anthony Towns was back, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, all the frontline guys who were out with COVID-19. Since those guys came back, the Timberwolves have been 17-9 as a team, which is phenomenal, right? One of the best records in the league since that time, no question. And it's easy to look at that and pick apart the fact that there haven't been that many impressive wins, which is true. You look at the impressive wins, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes if you're not watching on YouTube. If you look at the quote unquote impressive wins since that point, Denver, I guess, a week and a half before the All-Star break, Memphis, the game after the All-Star break. That's kind of it. There's been some impressive performances in general since then. The Cleveland win, Golden State, Utah. There's also some at Golden State twice, actually. There's also some excuses baked in there for those, right, as to why they're not that impressive. Curry missed the first Golden State game. Clay and everybody else missed the second Golden State game. Donovan Mitchell missed the Utah game. Cleveland, no Darius Garland, no backcourt really at all for them starting a two-way guy. There's excuses that you could make for why those aren't that impressive. But that kind of brings up my next point, which is the Timberwolves have been winning the games that they're supposed to win. And that is super important. And really, it's a mark of a playoff team. And I'm not, a playoff team in general, whether that means play in, 6 seed, whatever. Good teams, and the Wolves are, I think, fair to say, a good team. They're a top half of the NBA team at this point, pretty obviously. They win the games they're supposed to win. You're supposed to beat Utah with no Donovan Mitchell. You're supposed to beat Golden State with no Steph Curry, or on the flip side, no Steph Curry, or excuse me, no Klay Thompson, no Draymond Green, no Nemanja Bjelica, right? Missing rotation guys. You're supposed to win against Cleveland when they don't have a backcourt. You're also supposed to beat Detroit twice in a row, which the Wolves did. You're also supposed to beat, name any other of these games that they're supposed. Sacramento, I guess they did lose the one game to Sacramento, but there's been precious few bad losses, right? Sacramento, but that was on a back-to-back. They lost the double-digit game to Atlanta. That was ugly. The blowout to Toronto, the blowout loss right before the All-Star break was really bad. But right before the All-Star break, excuses apply there too. So the point here is that the really good wins have canceled out the really disappointing losses, and the Wolves have won everything in between. Essentially, they've won all the games they're supposed to win. There's some fluky ones here and there. The buzzer beater lost to the Pelicans, but that happens. It's the NBA. And a buzzer beater is a buzzer beater. It means you generally played well. I know there were some things that were disappointing about that game, but they didn't get blown out by a bad team, right? They were in the game, and they lost on a buzzer beater. That happens to everybody at some point or another. So the really good the really good wins have canceled out the really bad losses, and they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And that equals a 17-9 record since COVID. Or I should say since COVID really impacted the Timberwolves, since that really, what they have rotation guys out for something like 3 weeks straight. But since that point, they're 17-9 and they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. A big reason for that is Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley is somebody the Wolves are going to rely on heavily moving forward. And you may remember he struggled. We all know he struggled mightily overall this season. But when guys were out with COVID, he was really good. He rejoined the starting lineup for the first time in forever. And as a starter over those 9 games, Malik Beasley averaged 19 points a game. He shot just under 36% from three, 41% from the floor. He was generally really solid. I mean, the 36% is still below what he shot for his career, but it was far better than he'd been shooting all season. Clearly, he got something of a rhythm getting back in the starting lineup, contributing in a different way than he had so far this season. And then when he moved back to the bench, inevitably, he really struggled. When he moved back to the bench on January 5th against Oklahoma City, it was the first game he wasn't starting again. And you look at his next, really from that point forward, his next 11 games, he averaged only 8 points a game, shot 32% from beyond the arc, 33% from the field. And he struggled because his role shifted again. His usage rate declined. He was no longer in a rhythm. But then from that point forward, since then, he's been fantastic. He had one blip on the radar. He was scoreless in that Charlotte game that the Wolves won in overtime, which actually coincidentally happened to be the game when Anthony Edwards sprained his ankle and missed the second half. Beasley was not able to step up in that game, but other guys did, and they won that game. Even including that, over the last 14, which again is since that bad stretch of 11 games after he went back to the bench, over his last 14 games, going back to January 28th against Phoenix, Malik Beasley's averaging 13 points a game off the bench. He's shooting 45.6% on three-point attempts, 44.1% from the floor. And I mean, those are really the only things he does. Malik doesn't really provide anything in any other categories. But if he could shoot 45, 46% from three moving forward, the Wolves will be in good shape. The reason why this will be completely underscored is because of the Anthony Edwards injury. We don't know how long he'll be out. He may bounce back and be back Saturday. Maybe he's back Monday against Portland. But no matter what, Malik Beasley's vital to this team's success down the stretch of this season, and it becomes that much more obvious when Ant is out. And no, Beasley's not going to start. Jaden McDaniels got the start Wednesday, I would imagine, or Tuesday. I imagine that's the case moving forward, that McDaniels starts. Beasley's in that role that he's now been comfortable in again over the past, dozen plus games, to come off the bench, to be a flamethrower, to every time he touches the ball, to just fire it at the rim with his insanely quick release in transition or in the half court, run a couple plays for him, keep him in a rhythm. I mean, I said this after the game on Tuesday, the Wolves offense, I still believe this is a sky is the limit offense. If they can get Beasley, if they can keep Beasley going, and, the likes of Jordan McLaughlin can play well enough and make their open shots. And same with Jaden McDaniels making open shots. And he's been, of course, really good lately. Had his career high in threes just a couple games ago. But to me, the key here is Malik Beasley. We know generally what we're going to get out of D'Angelo Russell, out of Karl-Anthony Towns, out of a healthy Anthony Edwards. Malik Beasley has been all over the place, extremely volatile all season long. And if he plays more like he's played his last month instead of the month before that when he was coming off the bench, or instead of the first 2 months of the season when he was really struggling with the shot, if he puts up 9, 10, 11 points a game off the bench at 45% shooting from three, that's fantastic. Because mixed in there, you're going to have games like he played on Wednesday or on Tuesday against Golden State when he dropped 20 points in 27 minutes on 6 of 9 shooting from three. Mixed in the last dozen games, he actually has 4 games where he scored 20 or more points, including a 26-point game in that loss to Phoenix at the end of January. So he's still going to be a little bit up and down, but if you take the body of the last 14 games and he's shooting 45% from three, and there's only one scoreless game in there's only 3 single-digit scoring games, and for the most part, he's in he's in double digits scoring, and he's got the stray 20+ point game. We all know he's capable of that. That's going to be so important to the Timberwolves offense moving forward. And he's going to get every opportunity as long as we don't know how long Ant will be out, but if Ant is out a couple more games, keep Beasley in that bench role where he's been comfortable. And I think Finch is going to do that. Keep him engaged, get him shots. Now, I mean, he doesn't have to try too hard to find shots when he's on the court, because when he touches the ball, it's going up to the rim from distance. But if the Wolves can run a couple plays for him, get him some minutes with Karl-Anthony Towns, and obviously he does overlap with Towns quite a bit, but make sure that he gets some solid run with Towns on the floor, keep his confidence up. I really like when Towns is in the post, having Beasley on the perimeter as a catch and shoot guy that can get the ball kicked out to him. Make sure those minutes overlap and keep Beasley going. And if Beasley can play like he has the last 14 games, which again is in line with what he did last season, and really the end of the season prior to that with the Timberwolves, then they're going to be in really good shape here moving forward. So all that to say, Beasley is the guy that's going to be key. And this is the right time in the schedule, easy stretch of the schedule to give Edwards a break, to keep Malik Beasley going. And then as the schedule gets more difficult, hopefully get Ant back, and hopefully Beasley continues to play like we know he can. It's not like this is a complete outlier, him shooting 45% over the last 14. He's a career 40% three-point shooter. So that's in line with what he would typically do. I mean, everybody's going to have hotter stretches than others. I'm not actually expecting him to shoot 45% the rest of the way. Although I've been talking about progression to the mean for guys like Beasley and also D'Angelo Russell on three-point shooting, and Patrick Beverley. We're starting to see some of that. We already saw it with Taurean Prince. He's progressed to his career average after being awful from three the first 2-3 months of the season. Now we need to see it with Malik. We need to see it hopefully continue with D'Lo and Patrick Beverley. But Malik Beasley is going to be the key moving forward. Okay, I want to look at Wolves Thunder and do a quick preview of that matchup. We're going to do that here next. Before we get to it, though, let's talk about our great friends over at Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really even a resolution, though, because I actually genuinely and truly enjoy eating Built Bars. Have you tried Built Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, including Puffs, 100% real chocolate. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Just go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. Trust me, you'll be blown away. High protein, low calorie, high fiber, low carb. I'll list a couple for you right now. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, just 4 grams of sugar, and only 4 net carbs, but they have 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. Mint brownie, coconut almond, plenty of other flavors to pick from. And new in February, they've still got some on the site. I just looked. White chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors come out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it will be good for you. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they really do pull it off every single time. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's talk Wolves Thunder. So the Wolves haven't seen Oklahoma City in a little while. It was back actually beginning of January, about 2 months ago. They saw them twice. They hadn't seen them all season. They beat them both times. One game was kind of ugly, low scoring. Was it like a 98-90? Yeah, 98-90 final. That was the game when Oklahoma City basically couldn't score in the first quarter. They won the first quarter. The Wolves did 30-10, and OKC fought back. And actually, it was disappointing that the Wolves didn't win by more. The Wolves' offense was terrible after the first quarter. The Wolves, this was shortly after they got back to full strength. They had their preferred starting lineup. Cat had 17 and 16 in this game. Struggled a little bit with his shot. Ant had 22, 5 steals in the game for Anthony Edwards, and 16 off the bench for Jalen Noel. This was at the height of Jalen Noel time. Shot 6 of 6 off the bench, 3 assists, had 16 points in 23 minutes in that Wolves victory. And then the next time they faced off, which was really kind of shortly thereafter. Actually, I think they were consecutive games. One in Oklahoma City, it was the home and home. One in Oklahoma City, one in Minnesota. D'Lo had 27 on 11 of 12 shooting, made 4 threes, had 12 assists in that game. Ant had 24, 7 and 6, and Cat had 19, 8 and 5 in that game. So kind of your big three doing what they do. Naz Reid had 17 off the bench. And in that game, the Wolves struggled a little bit to slow down Lou Dort. He had 18 points. But beyond that, I mean, Oklahoma City does not have a good offensive attack at all. They're dead last in offensive rating league wide. And in the two games against the Wolves, they scored 90 in the first game, 105 in the second game. And if you can't outscore Oklahoma City, then you're in trouble. They just are not a good offense. And taking a look at overall what they do offensively, they don't get to the free throw line, which is obviously a great match for the Timberwolves, who commit a ton of fouls. So hopefully, something has to give here. Hopefully, it's on the side of the Wolves can somehow avoid fouling. The Wolves are still last in the league in terms of opponent free throw rate, right? They foul more than any other team. They allow the most free throws. Oklahoma City is 29th in offensive free throw rate. So something has to give here. Hopefully the Wolves can avoid fouling a team that doesn't like to get fouled. So that's a good beat for the Wolves there. Oklahoma City also, they shoot a lot of threes, but they're dead last at 3-point shooting percentage. As a team, they're just 31.5% from 3-point range, last in the league. So they're last in 3-point shooting. They're second to last in free throw rate. They're also bottom 10 in offensive rebounding. They don't turn it over a lot, which is interesting for a young team. But against a team like the Wolves that turns other teams over, again, something has to give there. The Wolves remain the league's best team in terms of best defensive unit in terms of causing opponent turnovers. Now, I mentioned Lou Dort went off the last time. Lou Dort is not playing. He hasn't played since right before the All-Star break. So no Lou Dort for Oklahoma City. Still no Derek Favors. He missed the last game against the Wolves. No Josh Giddey, which is huge. Those are probably the biggest ones. Minnesota native Mike Muscala has been out since before the All-Star break. Ty Jerome has been out since the All-Star break. Kenrick Williams, who was really good against the Wolves last time and has been just kind of an energy guy off the bench for Oklahoma City, he's out too. This is a really battered and bruised Thunder team. Obviously, they've still got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's their best player anyway, but no Giddey's a big deal. And some of these other depth pieces, I promise you that the names of the guys off the bench are not names the casual NBA fan is familiar with. I mean, they'll still have Darius Beasley, Alexei Pokasevsky, of course, the second year 7 foot plus guy. He's playing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The starting lineup is still, they're all rotation guys, but that's where it ends. I mean, there's nobody else that's a preferred rotation guy that appears as though they'll be ready to play against the Wolves. All of that said, I'd be surprised if you missed this, but of course the Thunder beat Denver by 12 on Wednesday. Their last time out, they beat the Denver Nuggets, who had won 6 straight, were double-digit favorites in this game at betonline.net. And Oklahoma City went into Denver and beat the Nuggets by 12. And they had a 7-point lead going to the fourth quarter. They just extended it in crunch time. They did not give that up to a Denver team that obviously is playing for something Oklahoma City shouldn't be. Obviously, the front office would prefer that they lose those games, right? But Gilgeous-Alexander had 29 points in that game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. They got 26 out of Isaiah Roby. So the Wolves need to be careful. This is far from a sure thing. Obviously, on the road, it's a 1-game road trip. Those are weird. The Wolves went to Oklahoma City. They go right back home to play again on Saturday night at Target Center. So 1-game road trips are difficult. And even though it's a depleted Thunder team, no Anthony Edwards for the Wolves. I mean, that wasn't an issue on Tuesday against Golden State. But if the Wolves can do what they typically do defensively, if they can avoid committing a ton of fouls, the Thunder aren't going to force them to commit fouls. The Wolves can do okay on the glass against this team. They certainly should. The Thunder are missing some guys that are more active on the glass, obviously, in Derek Favors and Kenrick Williams. So a game the Wolves should certainly win. I haven't looked at the betonline.net line, but I'm sure the Wolves are favored by, I don't know, even with no Ant, probably 6 to 7 points would be my guess. So a game the Wolves should win, a matchup that is in the Wolves' favor, a team they've beaten twice. And we're looking at they're the second worst team in the West. They're a bottom 5 team league wide, but you got to look out for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So Jaden McDaniels has to stay out of foul trouble. I mentioned no Anthony Edwards. Jared Vanderbilt is on the injury report as questionable with the quad injury, but he's been on the injury report as questionable for, I don't know, many games since the first of the year. I don't think he's missed a single one. So he might have missed one actually, but generally speaking, he's been available. And between Vando and McDaniels, the Wolves are going to have to try and figure out how to slow down Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. All right. That's all for today. Of course, the Wolves play again on Saturday night at home against Portland. We'll be back here at the start of next week and kind of recap the weekend and launch into what should be a fun week. I mean, the Wolves have some winnable games. They really should win at least 4 of their next 5, with 2 against Portland, 2 against Oklahoma City, and then next weekend against the Orlando Magic. I would say if the Wolves don't win 4 out of their next 5, and don't be shocked if they drop 1, right? It's hard to build a super long winning streak in this league. I mean, overall, then you'd still be looking at what, 6 out of 7 wins. But they win 4 out of the next 5. I think we're happy about how things are going. The Clippers won again, by the way, on Thursday night, which is not helpful, of course. Dallas won as well, for what that's worth. They continue to play insanely well. So the Wolves are now only a game up on the Clippers. They're 2.5 behind Denver for the 6th spot in the West. We'll, of course, keep an eye on that as well. Thank you again to those of you that make Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. Of course, the show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, anywhere you like to listen to podcasts. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T-Wolves and at Beecken, with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. Thanks again for listening to Locked On Wolves, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. And now that you made us your first listen, go ahead and make your second listen. Locked On NBA. It's our Locked On experts that cover the biggest stories around the NBA Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.